Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into some really important new research that tries to answer a question that's been on everyone's mind.
Okay, so today we're diving into a paper called Sticky Production and Monetary Policy by Jenny Chan, Sebastian Diz, and Derek Kang-Gieser. And they are tackling a huge question, especially with everything we've seen in the economy lately. When demand suddenly surges, what happens next?
The authors kick things off with a real puzzle. When the economy gets a sudden jolt, like a massive increase in consumer spending, what happens? Do we get more jobs and more growth, or do we just get higher prices? And what they argue is that the answer, it all comes down to what you think is sticky or slow to change in the economy. And this quote here really gets to the heart of it. That choice you make isn't just some academic detail, it changes everything.
So you might be thinking this sounds a little theoretical, right? But it's not. This is the exact dilemma policymakers have been wrestling with. Think about it. All the stimulus money, the crazy shifts in what we're all buying. Central banks have to figure out if pumping more money into the system is going to create jobs or if it's just going to cause that painful inflation we all feel. This paper gives us a new way to think about that very problem. All right, so to really get what this paper is about, we need to break down two key ideas, two types of economic stickiness, or what economists like to call rigidities. These are basically the things that stop the economy from adjusting instantly when something unexpected happens. First up, we've got real rigidity. And the best way to think about this is just sticky production. Imagine you run a car company. You can't just snap your fingers and double your output overnight, right? Nope. You've got to hire people, you've got to order parts, your supply chains have a certain speed. The real physical world just moves slower. Okay, so that's the real world stuff. The other side of the coin is nominal rigidity. And you've probably heard of this one, sticky prices. This is when the price tag on a coffee or a t-shirt doesn't change right away, even when demand goes way up. Why? Well, maybe it's a pain to print new menus, or maybe you're just not sure if this new demand is going to last. So the price stays put. And here's the crucial takeaway. These two types of stickiness, they create two totally different economic worlds. It's like a fork in the road. In one world, production is the bottleneck, but prices can adjust on the fly to balance things out. In the other world, prices are the things that are stuck in concrete, which means production has to do all the heavy lifting. So let's walk through the first scenario from the paper. Let's imagine a world where the only thing that's sticky is production. Firms have to kind of guess what demand will be and commit to their supplies, but they're totally free to change their prices later. Okay, now check out this chain reaction. It's like watching a set of dominoes fall. So, boom, a sudden wave of demand hits. But the firms, they're caught completely off guard. They can't just ramp up. So what do? Well, they push their existing resources to the max. They're paying overtime, running machines 24/7, and all of a sudden their cost for each item goes through the roof. To avoid losing money, they have no choice but to jack up prices. And just like that, you've got inflation. Then the central bank swoops in, raises interest rates to get things under control, and ironically, that ends up pumping the brakes on the whole economy. And this table just lays it all out, crystal clear. In this world, a big surge in demand doesn't really create much growth. Nope, it just gets channeled straight into higher prices. And the medicine to cure that inflation, higher interest rates, can actually make output shrink. So get this, more demand ends up meaning more inflation and less growth. Kind of counterintuitive, right? All right, that's one story. But what if we change the rules of the game? Let's look at the second model, which builds a completely opposite case. Now we're going to assume that prices are also sticky. So in this world, the story totally flips on its head. That same shock hits, tons of new demand. But this time, firms can't just raise their prices. The price tag is basically glued on. So what's their only move? With all these customers banging down the door, they've got to figure out how to make more stuff. They hire more people, they invest in new machines, they expand. All that energy from the demand shock, it gets absorbed by real economic activity, not by rising prices. And the result? It's the complete mirror image of what we just saw. The very same demand shock leads to very little inflation, but a big boost in output. Instead of being a problem for policymakers, that surge in demand is suddenly this incredible engine for growth. Okay, so this is what it all boils down to. We've got two models. Both seem perfectly logical. Both are built on pretty reasonable ideas, but they spit out completely opposite answers about how the world works. So which world do we actually live in? Which one is right? And this, for me, is where the paper gets really cool. The authors don't just leave us hanging with a theoretical what if. They roll up their sleeves and dig into the data to see which of these stories actually matches up with reality. And their method is pretty clever. To find a demand shock, they look for times when industrial production was way higher than anyone expected. Basically, they take the real production numbers from Fred and compare them to what all the top forecasters on Bloomberg were predicting. That gap, that's the surprise. Then they do some fancy statistical work to filter out any noise from the supply side, like a sudden jump in oil prices. And once they have a clean demand surprise, they just track what happens to inflation right after. And the result is, well, it's pretty surprising. Look at this. The data clearly shows that after one of these positive demand surprises, when firms are making more than we thought they would, inflation doesn't go up. It actually goes down a little bit. So what does that mean? It means the evidence is pointing squarely at our first scenario, the world where production is sticky but prices are flexible. It seems that when companies see signs of strong demand, they start to expand their capacity, and that expansion actually helps keep prices in check. This really suggests that the true bottlenecks in our economy aren't on the price tag, but on the factory floor. Okay, so why should we care? Why does this matter for the people making these massive economic decisions at places like the Fed or in government? Well, honestly, it changes the entire playbook. First off, it tells us that if the supply side of the economy is already stretched thin, just throwing more stimulus money at the problem is probably going to give you more inflation than real growth. It also suggests that when a central bank has to step in and fight inflation, the economic fallout, the hit to output, might not be as bad as we've been led to believe. And this is huge. It underscores how critical it is for policymakers to be super clear about their plans. That forward guidance stuff you hear about, it's not just talk. It helps businesses plan for the future so they can adjust production and make these shocks way less painful for everyone.
And that leaves us with this one big, powerful question to chew on. If the real bottleneck holding our economy back isn't a lack of demand, but our physical ability to produce things, shouldn't we be completely rethinking our approach to economic policy? Maybe the focus shouldn't be so much on stimulus checks, but on fixing supply chains, on investing in new technologies, and on training our workforce for the jobs of tomorrow. This paper makes a really compelling case that that's a question we absolutely need to start taking seriously.